Hi, and welcome to my seminar on the fabrication of the American dream. So, the American dream. We've heard it for all of our lives in songs, business titles, other forms of media like literature. Now, what even is it? I mean, we have as Americans have had a general grasp of this growing up, hearing it throughout our lives, but do we really know what it is? Well, I guess we can say that the basic and most common perception of the American dream is a socio-political and socio-economic ideal. Those are big words, so let me narrow it down. Socio-political is of or relating to or involving a combination of social and political factors. So this is going to be poverty, national wealth, social integration, politics, anything under that umbrella. Socioeconomic is, you guessed it, of or relating to or involving a combination of social and economic factors. This is going to be housing, occupation, income, and resources that you get from your occupation. So, aspects of the American dream have been collectively created over the course of history ever since we settled here. There have been a few examples of this dated very far back, like John Winthrop's sermon towards the Massachusetts settlers, the City on a Hill sermon, where he encourages the community and expresses expectations of his colony to be an example to the rest of the world. Another example of an aspect of the American dream is seen in the Declaration of Independence with the whole life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness thing. But the term the American dream itself was not coined until 1931 when James Truslow Adams created his Epic of America around the Great Depression time when the economy was very bleak and dismal. He kind of promised prosperity and wealth for everybody while grabbing aspects of the history before and putting in an actual set definition that is the American dream that we see today. Um, his exact definition of this was a dream of a social order in which each man and each woman shall be able to attain to the fullest stature of which they are innately capable and be recognized by others for what they are, regardless of the fortuitous circumstances of birth or position. So, with this information, I guess that we can say that the American dream is a common goal that U.S. citizens should strive to achieve, and that every citizen should be able to achieve it with the utmost equality and fair opportunity. Um, so James Truslow Adams claimed that the reason why the economy got to where it was because of after World War I, happiness being measured by success through occupation and such kind of shifted to happiness being measured by the accumulation of possessions and wealth. He claimed that the overall population of America had ended up valuing material possessions over everything else since culture after World War time like worshipped suburban homeownership and stuff related to that. Despite Adams' efforts in changing this, the 50s did begin to value their work again, but specifically working to buy a house, buy a car, and to provide for a family, creating this concept of the nuclear family. So people started to believe that the purchasing of material goods to create and benefit from this family was the ultimate goal of the American dream. This has kind of shifted to an altered, slightly more modern form of the American dream, and we can still see it today as its impact has influenced older generations who have later encouraged their kids to follow in their footsteps. This specific American dream, however, is not the guarantee that many people, especially immigrants, assume that it is. So, because of what the American dream has promised, which is pursuit of happiness and wealth and opportunity, there has been a very high demand for immigrants, especially people seeking refuge or a better life, ever since Ellis Island. After all, this country was founded by immigrants in the first place. The US is one of the top host destinations for international students worldwide, and about 18.6% of foreign born immigrants make up the labor force. As of recent, there are about 45 million people residing in the US who were born in foreign countries. So, because of this kind of influence of other people coming to this country, there has been a lot of diversity in our country that is more prominent than other countries. There has also been a quick progression of integration because of how many cultures have mixed in to make up our American culture, which is why we are called the melting pot. Related to this, there have been a lot of civil rights movements and abolitionists and women's rights suffragists who have used the aspects of the American dream into their campaigns, kind of emphasizing the all people are equal in rights and liberty and such. So we also have a pretty strong economy. James Truslow Adams used the Epic of America to remind the country of its historical roots, leading up to its current foundation on business and capitalism. So We value and rely on so many large corporations that were made in the US, like Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Walmart, you name it. Um, Along with Germany, Japan, China, and India, we are one of the strongest economic countries in the world, and our gross domestic product is expected to be 2.4% in upcoming months and years if we have not already hit that point. So, with positive aspects, there are also negative outcomes to anything. Because our economy is very large, there are also negative parts of it. Um, there is also kind of a stigma with us specifically as Americans where money is incredibly valued if you have it. Actually, about 7 in 10 Americans said that having more money would solve most of their problems. We're also the number one country to overconsume, and we have about, I think, $3.2 trillion in imports from last year. So, yeah, because of the high international demand, I believe the adequate college education has gotten very expensive, and housing has also gotten very expensive as of recent years. This can be kind of challenging for first generation immigrants who sometimes don't have as much money as US born citizens who have gotten their money inherited in the past. Now, this is not absolute for all immigrants, but there is a higher chance, and actually, household wealth is much higher among US born people that do have immigrant parents than among immigrants themselves. So I feel like this kind of showcases how much the American dream has been worked from success through work to only working as a way to value their money and given to the over expenses of business and other institutes. On top of that, some American born self made CEOs have used their power to incentivize corruption for the pursuit of profit, i.e., Amazon. And in the past, this labor has kind of exploited immigrants. An example can be the Transcontinental Railroad, if you can recall that. I'm not going to get into it though. That's in the past, but we kind of have remnants of this in job outsourcing, which it's kind of outsourcing jobs to countries with a lot less freedom to give them opportunity through labor. This is usually beneficial, but sometimes this can cause desperate people to overwork themselves for little wages if this is not practiced right. Also, outsourcing can sometimes lead local citizens in need of these same jobs. Um, so that's all I'm going to say about the economic part. I have some social outcomes as well. Um, we have Christian nationalism. All right. So, religious nationalism is a belief that religion should be a key influence on politics and the government, and that the church and state should work hand in hand. Since Christianity is one of our largest religions in the Western world, the largest form of nationalism is going to be Christian nationalism. So this has kind of been branched off from the whole one nation under God aspect that has been related to the American dream, and also back to John Winthrop's belief that the state was responsible for forcing religious laws and such. So I feel like religious nationalism is very prominent to where we live, as you can see in this map. We are actually in this belt for support of Christian nationalism, around 50, 60% almost. We sympathize for that. Not all of us, but it's very prominent, and we are in this belt. On top of that, according to the American Sociological Association, which is belief belief in Christian nationalism strongly aligns with the support of nativism. This is the political policy of protecting those who are native born, including the support of anti-immigration measures. So I feel like these two kind of go hand in hand with each other. Um, it kind of goes against the Constitution's freedom of religion, and also can hinder the opportunities of immigrants that are coming from different religious backgrounds. Right, this ideology that says you must be Christian to be an American can kind of hinder immigrants' abilities to integrate into society better, find communities, find a job, or just become successful. Um, American exceptionalism goes hand in hand with this. This is another belief that the US is superior to the rest of the world in every aspect, from ideology to history alone. This has been put in place over time, a stigma that has formed since the revolution. So, being proud of your country is certainly no bad thing, but not so much to the point where you undermine or devalue aspects of foreign countries and cultures, and especially those from those countries. I feel like one of the biggest outcomes we have from this is harmful stereotyping due to the lack of education because of our priority in American ideologies and history, right? So, one of these examples can be how some Americans think that all Africans just live in huts, right? Or that I guess you could say Asians are just all super smart. It's just like really, really shallow stereotypes that can sometimes harm immigrants coming here because of just the perception that some Americans have. So, my personal opinion on this is that striving for success in any country can be achievable, but an overall shared dream that people can value in life can do more harm than good. So, James Trislow Adams wrote The Epic of America as a way for everyone to strive for their own goals. This goal has created a global reputation because of how promising it is. But time has evidently created a different definition of this dream, creating an ultimate goal, which is linked to the nuclear family, that outsiders may perceive as everyone needs to achieve this in order to be recognized as successful. So people who are hoping for better lives are promised such a dream, but once they arrive, they are met with something entirely different sometimes. People like to throw around the phrase that the American dream is dead, but I like to think that it has never really been alive in the first place, not for everyone exactly. We have such a broad, diverse culture that I feel like not everyone can hop on board for just this dream. Um, the biggest issue at this point, I believe, is going to be the romanticization of the American dream in the eyes of immigrants, or specifically immigrants in less free countries. There is nothing wrong with the American dream in itself, but many immigrants are susceptible to valuing it over everything. So, the reason why I did this project is because I've grown up with a mother who is from the Philippines. She's a first generation immigrant, and I took some quotes from her after I guess interrogating her almost, and giving her some questions, and I got some feedback on. I have two quotes. One is on her perception of the education and how what it was for her specifically, and another one is a personal experience that she had herself with the harmful stereotyping of American exceptionalism. So the first quote is, okay, I thought it would be easier, like how they made it sound. In the Philippines, the reason we can't get jobs is because there are no jobs. It's all we have. Now, coming here, there are so many opportunities for us, but the pay is so low if you don't have a good education. You need to have a good education to get a good job. The problem is a lot of immigrants start out with any funds to do that, with barely any funds to do that. I couldn't really keep up with that as much as I thought. I feel like the American dream is achievable, but I had to work three or four times as much as someone born here. Second quote is an experience my mom had in a supermarket when she was buying laundry detergent using coupons, and some two old women came and talked behind her. It's just like this. She looked at my baggie. First, she says, "Wow, I wish I got free stuff." It's just another one of those EBT things. Then they start saying ching chong to each other, hoping that I would react. And then the other lady said, "No, maybe she's Mexican." At first, I didn't say anything because they thought I couldn't speak English. So I said, "Excuse me, this is couponing." I opened my coupon book. "These are coupons. I am shopping. I pay my taxes and I can speak English, even if you don't think I look like it." So I think a solution to this is reimagining the American dream. I know I'm kind of throwing a problem out there, and it's just such a broad thing that it's kind of hard to like pinpoint what to do about it. But I feel like if we were to reimagine an American dream to cater to one's own needs rather than valuing an ultimate nuclear family dream, I feel like this would just do better as our society, like in our society in general. So, a biblical integration is 1 John 2:15-17. I'm going to shorten it though. "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him." So the main idea of this passage is that loving the world is not loving the Father. I'm going to reiterate, because everything that derives from the world is indeed only from the world. It is easy for Christians to lose sight of love for the Lord over worldly desires promised by the American dream and many other things related to that. Second passage is Daniel 4:27, where it says, "Break off your sins by practicing righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the oppressed, that there may perhaps be a lengthening of your prosperity." So in this passage, Daniel was talking to King Nebuchadnezzar, who recently had a dream, and at the moment he's very caught up in his power of being a king for his own prosperity and such. Daniel teaches that we should not be obsessed with success for our own sake, but focus on what the Lord wishes for us to do. Many Christians in the past have focused on the wrong aspects of the American dream, relating prosperity to their own personal needs and not for the good of others. When we die, God's judgment will not be on how well we have achieved the American dream, but how well we use it for the benefit of those who are less fortunate than us and how much we keep God in the picture of our goals. Thank you.
Good job, Mackenzie. I do want to open up to our guests. Y'all got any questions or comments for Mackenzie?
Don't say anything.
That was fantastic. I love so much about your presentation. I think it's so interesting. I'm trying to figure out how to form this question, so sorry if I ramble. But when you look at the early church in Acts and the way that they functioned, like, did you explore that at all when you were looking at kind of your research?
Specifically with my biblical integration, I didn't really research too much into that, but
Because I think you see a much more emphasis on kind of collective living, and it's much more kind of an Eastern philosophy, I guess, of living versus where the Western world has become so individualistic.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm verbally processing
No.
out loud from your presentation, but
Yeah.
it was really, really well done. Was there anything that surprised you as you were researching?
Well, anything that the thing that surprised me the most specifically was kind of, I guess, actually the negative aspects are of our economy. I kind of got my eyes open to a lot of aspects of our marketing, and there are actually points that I never even mentioned about how like I did go through overconsumption. I had a lot of points that I had to get rid of because of this, because there were so many, and I just never realized that a lot of our culture is really based on like this marketing and how it's just so much different than other countries that I've been to. It's like one of the most important things that we have, and it's I just researching that specifically kind of made me open my eyes to like, oh, this is like a really big thing. So if that answers your question.
Because I had a couple comments / questions as I usually do. First of all, the term nativism you brought up, and yeah, like this is such a huge topic that it makes sense that you're going to have to cut it here and there, which I think you did a really good job, like still not losing too much of it. You got all the good stuff. And you mentioned this term nativism, and I really appreciate that you specifically connected it with Christian nationalism. And that's kind of a hot button term, especially politically right now, Christian nationalism. And as a Christian, it's like, why would I have a problem? I've been asked by people that have a lot of respect for it. What other kind of nationalism would you want? It's usually like a trope. It's kind of like the gotcha question. And it's like, well, it's not the Christian part I have a problem with, except for the fact that I don't think it's very Christian. It's the nationalism part because of the nativism part. Right? Like in 10 seconds or less, like what can you define nativism for us?
I guess nativism would be maybe an ideology where I guess a native born, and this is not even talking about like indigenous born. This is talking about mostly white American born citizens should be the most important like demographic of people that we have in America, and this should be protected, right? And they kind of don't want like immigration or other people who aren't native born just mixing in with the pure blood like Americans, you know.
And the reason I'm bringing that up is because in another class we heard some conversation about it's one thing to try to address overt racism. You know, it's one thing just to like throw out there, hey, there's a lot of racist elements in play here. But even underlying a lot, and then there are folks who are like, okay, well, I'm not racist. And maybe that's the case, but there is this implicit understanding that the people who ought to be prioritized in our culture are, and I'm desperately trying not to get political, but we have a lot of people who focus on an America first mentality. Like that's just the catchphrase, and it's really old. Like it's been around for a long time. All right, I'll say it. Recently, we had someone say that an influx of immigration is poisoning the blood of America. if that's not an exact quote, it's pretty close. The poisoning the blood thing is the quote. And then when corrected or when pushed back, it's like, well, hold on now. America is a melting pot. We've always had immigration. Like you mentioned, all the white folks weren't the first ones here. And then so many of these people were brought here against their will, So like, what do you mean by the blood of America? And then it's like, oh, well, I'm talking about illegal immigration. Well, okay, but that's not what you said. And also, like, what does that say that you think the problem of illegal immigration is not fairness or legality? The problem is that there's some type of, it's nativism that you use the term like the blood of our country. Anyways, so I love that you got to that point. I really appreciate the fairness that you treated us with. If I'm also being honest, like y'all know I preach to you all year about like how the extremes, how we sprint to extremes, right? And you have some folks that are just embracing the Christian nationalism. You've got some folks that, in a rejection of Christian nationalism, they're even rejecting the American dream. Like they're even rejecting any type of benefit. And I really appreciate that there's a lot of nuance to this, and you recognize that. I don't know. This is a really big conversation, and we do have another presentation, but my classmates, we got time for one question.